Science Lesson 26 in your science books, pages 77 through 79. Turn with me there. Today we are going to discuss animals of the seashore. So turn to page 77 if you haven't already, and let's read about animals of the seashore. I like to hunt seashells. Little animals used to live inside each seashell. Now the shells are empty. Keep reading. Hermit crabs like to hunt for shells too. When they outgrow their shells, they will find new ones. We can find their empty shells on the beach. So, I asked you before if you've ever been to a beach. Many of you probably have been to a beach at some point. If you have, do you remember seeing seashells on the seashore? Do you remember seeing shells such as the ones on page 77 in the sand as you're walking along? Many of those shells, even though they're small, used to be home to hermit crabs. Other animals may have gotten in there to hide or to have a home as well, but those empty shells, a lot of them used to be the home to a hermit crab. Do any of you have a hermit crab at home? I have a friend who does have a hermit crab as a pet for her children, and they've had this hermit crab a very, very long time. I'm not quite sure how long hermit crabs last, but she's had it for a few years, which is actually kind of a long time to keep a hermit crab as a pet. Anyway, it's fun to sometimes go along the seashore and actually pick up shells. Sometimes people will take shells home as a little souvenir from their trip. It's fun to look for seashells. Next time you go to a beach or the seashore, maybe you can find some shells. Turn to page 78. Let's discuss about fish. Read with me. God created fish in all shapes, colors, and sizes. A fish uses gills to breathe under the water. Fins help a fish to swim. Most fish live in groups. The groups are called schools. Very interesting. A group of fish is called a school of fish. Look at those beautiful fish on the page, on page 78. These are different kinds, 6 different kinds of fish that we could find in the water. Did you see where it said a fish uses gills to breathe under the water? Humans have lungs to breathe, and we breathe air. If we go underwater, we have to hold our breath because we do not have a way to breathe under the water naturally. Now, if we have a snorkel that allows us to breathe the air from outside once we're under the water, that's a different story. If we have an oxygen mask on, that's a different story. However, fish are able to breathe underwater with their gills because they don't have lungs. They have gills, and those gills help them to breathe underwater. That first picture there, those fish are called clownfish. Now maybe you're thinking, hey, that's Nemo. Exactly. Nemo is a clownfish, and you can see the orange color that we see on most clownfish. Right beside the clownfish, I see some stingrays. Those specific ones are actually cow-nose rays. Now, stingrays have something in their name that you need to be careful of. They have a stinger. But if you go to an aquarium, and I have been to the National Aquarium in Baltimore before, you can actually touch the top of the stingray safely and it won't sting you. And if you are treating the stingray kindly, then it shouldn't sting you. So at the aquarium, if you have never been, there's a shallow pool of water and the stingrays are swimming along, and you can stick your hand just below the surface of the water as the stingrays are passing by, and you can feel the softness of the top of the stingray without it stinging you. They're kind of neat. Next, right below the clownfish are blue surgeonfish. Those are very pretty, the blue and the yellow. Maybe kind of like Dory. Right beside the blue surgeonfish, there's another group of fish called Atlantic spadefish. Now, I'm not quite sure where all of these names come from. However, I do imagine the reason this one is called the Atlantic spadefish is because the Atlantic spadefish is found in the Atlantic Ocean. That probably is the case. It makes sense to me, at least. And then right underneath those blue surgeonfish, tiger sharks. Tiger sharks. I'm pretty sure I'm going to stay away from those tiger sharks. I'm not going to go swimming with them. Be careful if you choose to, but you might not want to. And the final group of fish we see on our page is the barracuda. The barracuda is a very long, narrow fish. So as we can see on this page, there are 6 different kinds of fish, and they all look different. Now, they all have gills. They all are able to breathe under the water, but God created fish in all shapes and sizes and colors. Look over to page 79, crabs. Now, we've talked in the classroom a little bit about crabs, and some of us really like to eat crabs. I know I do, and some of you do too. I'm pretty sure Savannah loves her some crab also, don't you? Well, let's read about crabs before we discuss a little bit more. Crabs. A crab is a funny little animal. He has 10 legs. 2 of them are pinchers. His eyes are on stems. When he runs sideways. Read down at the bottom. A crab likes to fight. He likes to pinch. If his leg is bitten off, he will grow a new one. Ooh! Now, so much about crabs. We're just going to discuss a little bit though. So, those pinchers, they hurt. Now, if you have never held or seen a crab when it is alive, not ready to eat yet, those crabs move pretty quickly. And I have been crabbing before. In fact, Mrs. Conley's husband, Coach, loves to go crabbing. And a couple times, Mr. Tim and I have gone crabbing with Coach, and we have experienced real live crabs that move very quickly, and they like to pinch. Now, when getting those crabs out of the traps in the water, we have to be very careful that we don't get pinched. But if we get pinched, we just shake it off and move on. Now, also in the text, if his leg is bitten off, he will grow a new one. God made the crab to be able to grow a new leg if the leg is bitten off or if it falls off. It can just grow another leg. We've discussed this before, that some animals have the ability to do that. I believe when we discussed lizards, the same happens with their tail. So, if something happens in the water, they could regrow a leg. And that would be important for the one who wants to eat the crab, because crab leg meat, delicious. Not everybody likes crabs, but I like to have them steamed with Old Bay. I got some Old Bay right here. And it's just delicious. Dip it in a little bit of butter. Now I really, really want some crabs. And I really, really don't have some crabs to eat. Too bad, so sad. Anyway, crabs. Do you like to eat them? Do you not like to eat them? I like to eat them by picking them, or I like them in a crab cake, or I like cream of crab soup. Maryland crab soup is pretty good too. I just like crabs. Yum. Well, that's all we have for science for today. We will pick back up next week by discussing the starfish and the seahorse and others. So, that's all for now.